Fallout. You gotta get the jet. And in Fallout 4, you
Oh.
make your own jet.
I thought that was a different
And then
drug. I was
sell
like,
it.
okay, we got jet fuel, we got Fallout. What do you want? We got
What you
Shimmer.
want?
We
What
got
you
that Shimmer. Welcome to Casuals of Runeterra, Arcane Recap Episode 6. I'm your host, Ryan, here with the other host, Hatch.
We're burning the midnight oil.
We're as fast midnight oil.
We're burning the midnight oil at both ends.
That's the saying. Up both hills on the way to school in the snow. Yeah, it's freezing here in Atlanta. But listen, that didn't stop us from finishing this damn 6 episode. Act 2 in the books. But before that, housekeeping as always. You can listen to us everywhere. Visit us at podcastcore.com for all our info. Follow us and pick any platform that you prefer to listen to. And then send us an email, what you think about anything, at podcastcore@gmail.com. And then leave us a like, follow, short review / comment. It's always appreciated. Helps us get, some visibility, some eyes on the podcast. But the easiest way is to tell a friend to support organic growth by listening to the Casuals of Runeterra podcast.
Your cheese only gets better.
Yeah. So let's just hop into it. Obviously, this is wrapping up Act 2, so there's a good amount of stuff here. Off the bat, naturally, it's going to be hard to top Act 1's ending, right? But this does put us in a very interesting place. But we start off with another flashback, and Hetch and I have come to a conclusion. They've been consistent with how they're using flashbacks, so I'm going to give them a point back on the board for it.
Yeah. I'm keen to give the point back too, because you can only start so many episodes with a flashback before it's like, okay, this is your thing, isn't it?
Yeah, they're using it, and it's actually, in retrospect, 6 episodes into this Arcane special, in retrospect, because of how many characters they're dealing with, how much bouncing back and forth they do, it's actually a good way for them to establish, hey, this episode's going to focus on this character, right? So I get it. It took a bit, but I get it. But we do get to see Victor as a young boy, and we get a flashback of him actually doing some tinkering. We know he's good with tinkering already, but also we get to see how weak he is and kind of alone. There's a scene where he's in the slums of Piltover, and there's other kids, but other kids are playing amongst themselves, and he's by himself kind of tinkering with this thing. And this leads to us seeing a familiar face.
Yes. So it's funny because we still don't get a name at all as far as anyone actually speaking it. So outside of the time that I'm watching with subtitles, I don't think anyone else would go, oh yeah, so that's 100% singed.
Yeah.
But as far as with Victor tinkering, we see him playing with a toy boat. And I do like the parallel as far as with Powder's tinkering and Victor's tinkering, because Victor's tinkering is significantly better, which points towards his high level of intelligence. But then he goes into this cave and it's singed, acting as God, mutating some giant gecko thing.
Yeah.
And it's surrounded by these mushrooms that are glowing with a purple light, which is immediately going to make us think, hey, is this what they're using to manufacture Shimmer?
Yeah.
And we don't know, but Singe just goes, oh, you look like a lonely kid. Smart people tend to be lonely.
Yeah.
And it's like,
look at me, kid. I haven't aged a day, which we'll get to that because he looks
there.
good for the time frame they show him again.
And Victor's like, oh, well, is there anything I can help with? Because I find this gigantic freak gecko cute. And he's like, okay, cool. We'll be lonely together. And end of flashback. So
yeah, one thing to keep in mind in the real world, things like heroin come from poppies, right?
Yeah.
Opium. So this is actually a great way to represent it into something you can compare to real life, because what we start to see more in this episode are what you consider junkies, right? People who have used Shimmer in some fashion in the past that can't afford any more of it and are starting to mutate in different ways, more like side effects or withdrawals. So this is the first time we're really seeing it with the ultimate negative Besides death, we've seen it kill people.
I mean, it's like the natives of South America using coca leaves as a bread flour and as well as just to chew on for a quick pick-me-up.
Exactly.
But if you add like a bunch of gasoline and stuff, you can make some hardcore stuff.
Jet fuel.
Yeah, so...
Which is a good drug name, by the way. If you have a drug, come up with some name of jet fuel. It'll sell.
Hey, Fallout. You know, you gotta get the jet. And in Fallout 4, you can make your own jet.
I thought that was a different drug. I was like,
it.
okay, we got jet fuel, we got Fallout. What do you want? We got Shimmer. We got that Shimmer.
Casuals of Runeterra, your newest dealer.
Yeah, if you don't support the podcast, we will sell drugs.
Oh my God.
So naturally, we come out of the Victor flashback into Victor sitting, just kind of sightseeing. And Heimer shows up and they kind of have a powwow about something not so great.
Yeah, and this is Heimerdinger revealing that, you know, it's now public information that the Victor's prognosis is that he does not have long left to live. So they have a quick heart-to-heart because Heimerdinger does respect Victor. But that's about all there is for this scene. And then we cut over to Mel Medarda painting in her room and Jace coming back, and you know Mel's clearly a little upset that, hey, I didn't get my pillow talk.
Yeah.
And then Jace is like, oh, my best friend is dying.
The classic card to play.
So yeah,
fellas out there, take notes.
These young lovers are a little bit at a tiff.
Yeah.
And it's weird to say that and not be talking about Jace and Victor being the young lovers. It's, you know, a lot of confusing emotions.
Riot let them down.
Riot
let the fans down.
Hit them up on Twitter.
Tell them we sent you.
Now, for me, as far as having like Jace having this moment, this vulnerability and showing how close Victor is to him, one, it's good because we do get to read in the lore for both Jace and for Victor, which we do cover in our Victor episode, how close Victor and Jace were when they were young.
Yeah.
Specifically in Victor's lore, Victor is like, I find you insufferable, but I respect your mind. This shows that they did, you know, build a bond of brotherhood. So that it's important that they're building that.
And we get a bit for Mel here too, because the first thing she asked him is, hey, why are you coming to me with this? Right? Like, we had a night of fun, whatever. And she's constantly talking about how she was kind of isolated from her people, kind of not banished, but neglected.
Yeah.
So for her, we know how she operates on the council as sort of a loner that thinks she's in control of most things or moves the pieces a good bit. So we get a good sense of her personal isolation, despite her success.
Yeah. She may have been banished because the word that she used was exiled.
Exiled, yeah.
So she was exiled from the Medarda.
Yeah.
But I'm questioning whether she actually was because she keeps the Medarda name. And it's clearly reached a seat of power. So,
and it's kind of confusing if it's a family name or if it's a tribal name or if it's like royalty. Like it's still blurry there, which I'm sure they've done on purpose to keep her more of a mysterious figure. But I think that's a neat way for them to show her vulnerability, considering how much in control she's been throughout these episodes so far.
Yeah. Hey, you know, a night of sex is going to do a lot for people.
And, you know, so obviously they're talking about Victor's sickness. So we cut back to Victor, a very clean transition here. And he's having another one of those moments with Hex Tech. But this moment is special.
This moment is very special because it's now this contraption that they're trying to make work like similar to AI as far as to give freedom to Hex Tech. And
I don't like the way that phrase sounds at all. Give freedom to Hex Tech. It's like that already sounds bad.
Yeah, that's kind of what he's doing. But I mean, this kind of also shows how smart Victor is because he's able to put two and two together as far as seeing his blood there, realizing that the Hex Tech is acting differently.
Yeah.
And then he's just like, oh, okay, screw it. I'm dead anyways. So go ahead and touch this.
Yeah.
And it does react to him. And I think this is like the first like real proof that we get that like this Hex Tech is changing people.
Yes.
As far as like when it zooms in on his face and stuff, it's like, okay, he's leaving now.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the Victor we know is starting to disappear, and we don't know where it's going.
And this is, I think this is a great way, and I don't know if this is on purpose or not, but this is a great way to just represent radiation, right? This is something that in tech in the real world, as we progress, that's always something that comes into mind is how does this interact with humans, this new power source, this new thing, right? So this is a cool way to kind of see it play on that.
Do you think Victor's going to make a microwave?
Are there any microwaves in this universe?
I haven't seen a microwave yet.
I've seen a bunch of fucking jukeboxes. I have yet to see.
Upside down jukeboxes.
Listen, I'm not going to get into that. All right, magnets are cool, but this is ridiculous.
Yeah, so he makes physical contact, but we don't really see much more of that. And then we get one of our favorite cuts, which is to just something completely different. So we jump over to Jinx, and this transition, honestly, for me, is jarring.
Yeah.
Because one, we haven't touched on Jinx or Silco or any of that group at all in this episode yet.
Yeah.
We make this jump, and Jinx is in a diner, and she's asking about what the other gang members are doing.
Yeah.
And the guy that's running the diner tells her that they're out hunting for a girl. Which we don't even know yet, really, that they're looking for Vi.
Yeah.
Because the last episode ends with Savika telling Silco that Vi's back, Silco freaking out, literal, like, abrupt end of episode there. And that's it. So this is, like, in my notes, I actually wrote down that Jinx was trying to investigate what was the Firelights were doing. Because that's how I understood it. Because they haven't told us anything about Silco looking for Vi right now.
This is one of those moments, definitely. I think the only thing this serves... So I immediately kind of jumped. It's jarring within context. Outside of context, I think there's a good parallel at this point in the act to when Jinx, when she was Powder, was left out of that final mission that Vi went on. It's kind of a refresh of, she asked the bartender, who she doesn't remember his name because it's not important, what's going on, what's everybody up to? And they're like, oh, they're doing a thing. And she's like, without me, kind of thing again, right? And it's kind of rehashing that same play out, but this time she's more crazy than she was then.
This time she's embraced the Jinx.
Yeah.
So like what we do get to know as far as just after being able to, get the context of the full episode is that she's tracking down what Silco's up to. And Silco is hunting down Vi and simultaneously Caitlyn because they know that she's with an enforcer. And then that cuts us to Caitlyn and Vi, who are working their way through Zaun trying to track down Jinx. Mm-hmm. Caitlyn is not aware what they're doing. She still has no idea because Vi hasn't really let her in on any of these details yet. But Vi is leading her into the deepest parts of Zaun. Yeah. And it turns out that these deepest parts of Zaun is much more similar to like a
graveyard.
A graveyard that's infested with zombies.
Yeah, absolutely no light.
Yeah, absolutely no light. And all the people that are there are terrified of the light. And their childhood home. So this is where we get to see the home where Vi and Jinx grew up.
It's depressing.
And during this, Vi is still a little bit out of it because of her stab wound. She's kind of slowly bleeding out. She also takes a hell of a tumble down there because,
Slight,
a life-threatening wound.
It's called parkour. We talked about it last episode.
And life-threatening wounds only buff parkour. That's it. And one of the interesting things is that we get to see members of the Firelight tracking them doing this. So I wonder if the Firelight are based out of this area. I don't know if it's like their headquarters or not.
Yeah. It's because we mentioned this in previous episodes, right? Where we kind of lost track of where the Firelights were. Granted, in that episode that we did get the Firelights, Jinx did a good job of dismantling them to a degree where they might have to go figure out and regroup. But yeah, that was interesting to see that part of Zaun because we've talked about in the past just how Zaun is built.
Yeah. And this is the bottom of the barrel. And they do a good job of letting you know that, it doesn't get worse than this.
Yeah.
So then From there, it moves us over into uh, seeing what Jinx is up to, which is trying to find Silco.
Yep.
So Jinx is waiting at Silco's office. Savika goes to report to Silco. And Jinx is like, perfect, a hostage. The hell you up to?
Which is interesting because remember, up to this point, Jinx thinks she's alone, right? And out of the loop. Turns out Savilka is probably not as in the loop as well, because like, where's Silco? You expect him to be here. You remember, we're escalating how much out of control this is getting for Silco, right? And this just adds more to it, is not only this disruption on the surface, but the disruption within his own crew.
Yeah. And Savika is a little bit more in the loop in the fact that once she's taken hostage, she is able to tell Jinx that, like, no, they're not looking for a girl. They're looking for your sister.
Yeah.
So this is the first time that Jinx is aware that Vi's alive. She has one of her famous little breakdowns in a very quick moment.
Yeah.
And then she's like, oh, it's okay. I've got the perfect way to let Silco know that this mission is jinxed.
And then this takes us to, if I remember correctly, Silco, where he's at, right? And this is the great, like you said, mob scene. This is a very by the books. Even with this shot where Marcus opens the door crack, sees his daughter playing with something. He's like, okay, cool. Then gets a moment and opens it more, and then sees Silco's the one playing with her.
Yeah. I straight up looked at you and said, this is some Godfather shit.
He's even rocking a jacket that I don't think he rocks on the regular. It's a very mobster scene.
He's got to dress up if he's going topside.
You're right.
And Mama taught him better.
We get a little bit of Easter egg here where one of Silco's punks is sitting in the chair, in a rocking chair, reading a book, and we see the terrorist himself, Timo.
The true terrorist. Don't let Jinx fool you. Timo's the one that needs to be stopped.
He's the maniac. Listen, we'll get there. Timo doesn't make an appearance here. There's no way.
No, this is the only appearance that we're going to get unless he gets like a quick Easter egg and another shot in the lanes.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Because I like to...
It'd be too far off base.
I mean, it would make sense that like in Piltover, Timo is going to be like a folklore, you know, like a tale that you tell your children when they go to bed at night so that they can believe in a fantasy world. And it's like, magic creature that kills people with mushrooms. That's crazy. And then in Zon, it's just like, oh, what's up, Timo? The usual.
The usual giant mushroom on the table.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we get this, mobster scene playing out. Silco essentially tells Marcus, listen, you promised me something. That wasn't the truth. And I need you to fix this problem you created for both of us. And if you don't, accidents happen. And as he's looking at his daughter kind of situation, right? And then it even has the mobster swoop and cut scene where like he's getting up, swoops his jacket over, and it cuts, like transitions to the next scene. I'm like, okay.
It was straight up some Godfather stuff. Yeah. If you didn't hear the theme, the Godfather theme playing, you just haven't watched Godfather. That's how I feel about that whole scene. I do like that we finally get an answer as far as why Silco thought Vi was dead. And it's very clear that Marcus told Silco that he had apprehended Vi. He said, okay, Marcus, you need to kill Vi. Marcus said, I will kill Vi. Marcus imprisons Vi in Guantanamo Bay instead. And I mean, he says that Vi's not a problem anymore.
Whatever book.
It says, Vi's not a problem anymore. I put her in a prison that no one escapes from. And here we are.
Thanks, Chase.
Thanks, buddy.
So we get back to Victor in his kind of, mental state of the first time we get to see him testing with organic matter. And this is with a plant. And he's watching this. What do we call it now? He called it the hex core. And I guess that's what we'll call this, because we've had, gems, we've had shards, so we have a core. And he's seeing how this interacts with the plant life, and he's showing it to Jace, right? He's very confident, and Jace kind of puts two and two together. And it's funny to hear Victor say, think about the possibilities that this could have. And Jace is like, this could save you, right? So in Jace's mind, he's kind of doing the logical leaps already because of how much he cares for Victor.
Yeah. And I think this is also like the first signs that we get that like Victor is starting to change as far as no longer being human. Because we know the Hextech core is very important to Victor. It's the only item that he gets for free. So eat your heart out, mid laners. But the as far as with that, Jace is the one that's making the conclusion that, hey, Victor, with this we can save your life.
Yeah.
Victor's not the one saying that anymore. No. Victor at this point is no longer talking about how he's out of time.
Yeah.
He's now just like, oh no, it responds to organic material. I can't understand how to make the transmutation stick. I must do further calculations. This is a beginning to me of like Victor starting to change, which kind of works with the fact that he's physically touched this core.
Yeah, and the thing he does show Jace, because Jace makes that comment, and he's like, but wait, there's more, and he shows Jace the rest of the process where acceleration means in both ways, where it brings life, but also it kills it immediately afterwards. And that brings a concern to his face.
Yeah. But, they're off to go ahead and start working on trying to balance out this transmutation.
Yeah.
Because, for them, it's still a scientific process. Yeah. It's just that they're both on different pages without knowing that they're on different pages.
Yeah. That's a very nuanced scene.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely nuanced.
And then this takes us back to Caitlyn and Vi, right? Vi passing out a good bit, Caitlyn getting to wander a bit on her own, I think for the first time since she's come to the Undercity. And you can tell just in the time she's been with Vi, she's a lot more comfortable. She's blending in a lot more. She's not so much as that posh queen.
Is it the time that she spent with Vi, or is it the time that she spent in the brothel?
That's a good point. People grow up quick in the brothel.
everybody tends to relax once they're leaving that place.
But yeah, we get her running into what essentially is a junkie. And at first, it's that one thing of, hesitance. And then she sees what he's going through with his addiction. He tells her that he knows Vi. They grew up in that house. And he thinks he can help her find a way to help Vi. So she gives into it, right? She doesn't know much. She just wants to help out the person that's been helping her this so far.
It is really cool too, because as far as before she's leaving there and Vi is kind of going in and out of consciousness, she's starting to remember growing up there with Powder. And then that gets accelerated when Caitlyn looks at her and goes, hey, we're not so different. I can tell by being with you and spending time with you, you have a good heart.
Yeah.
And then Vi hears that in Vander's voice. So it's Vander saying, you have a good heart. And that kind of accelerates it more. But before we see where this this Smeagol, this golem takes Caitlyn, we cut back to our two favorite boys showing Heimerdinger, hey, check out our new hex core.
Real quick. Poor Heimerdinger. It's one of those things where within these episodes, they've come to him with like 5 breakthroughs in a week. And this man is very take time, take it slow. And they're like, we have a new breakthrough already. And it's like, please stop my heart. Yeah.
I told you 10 years.
I told you 10 years for the one last week.
10 years.
Yeah, this is where it's gotten, you have this parallel of things getting out of hand with Silco and Marcus and that whole situation. Things in the tech world for Piltover is also getting off the rails because they're going into mad scientist mode at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can really see this as far as with Heimerdinger's reaction to being shown the hex core, because he does once again this flashback as far as to whatever destroyed the original city of Piltover there. As far as with the time that this flashback caught up, to me, the look of it was kind of more, it reminded me of the lore for Kale and Morgana.
Exactly, yeah.
So because now we actually see like a humanoid figure in this like burning radiance pillar. Yes. And I mean, we know that Kale and Morgana have been there since the beginning.
I had the same thought. And
they had a battle that basically destroyed all of known life close to it.
But it's cool. They're both pretty. All right. So
that's good enough for me.
That's all we need.
If they give me their phone number, I'm good. But so Heimerdinger officially tells them, no, destroy this.
Yeah, he's terrified.
Destroy this. And Jace is like, no, I'm not destroying this because it can save Victor's life. and I'm now on the council. So I'm ready to throw my weight to make this happen.
And then we immediately cut back to Caitlyn on her adventure with the Juice Lord himself. We don't know his name. I'm going to call him Juice Lord. But what ends up happening is he takes her to a broker. The broker says, I have something that she's like, what's the ailment? She's been stabbed. And then she's like, all right, I got something for that. So gives her a potion that's spiked with a bit of shimmer. She takes that, but you got to trade something for it, right? The only thing she has worth value is her gun, not the gun we know her to have, but this one kind of breaks down. It's more like a travel rifle.
Yeah, this is clearly like the enforcer regulation.
Yeah.
Like everyone's issued this rifle. Yeah. And we know that later on Caitlyn makes her own. But it's nice to see as far as what happened to the regulation issued one is that she gave it up to help Vi. Yeah. And after making that trade, this vendor potion snake oil salesman like ends up giving a drop of a purple looking liquid.
And by the way, if you know what this race is, so at this point I think we've seen 3 instances of this more like dark skin, kind of elvish looking with sharp teeth and what looks like either tattooed around the eyes or just natural patterns. We've seen 3 characters like that, and I can't for the life of me think of, they're not the same as like Nami. This is a different race from my side. But if you guys know, let us know.
Yeah, I will end up doing some reading into it, but that's going to happen after I get some sleep.
Oh, yeah. Listen, we're doing this for you guys. Yeah. We're burning the candle at 6 seconds.
The only thing that seemed to me was missing, though, is like after giving up the rifle, just have that lady just go, 2 portions.
Oh, you read my mind. We've been doing this too long. So next we get a shot of Marcus, right? We get a Marcus trying to get details on Jace. Right. And that's kind of a short lived thing. Nothing major there. It's just him trying to be like, all right, I'm in crisis mode. He has my daughter. I just need to do what he says. I'm done playing these games, these politics. And you can tell he looks tired because everything he's been through. It's fine being a dirt cop when you're young. When you're older, you got a kid. That's a young man's game.
You just want out. Yeah. Like, you just want out at that point. I like the little bits of like the game that's being played here. Yeah. Like if you're a fan of mob stories and stuff, this is something that you're going to enjoy because he uses the grenade that Silco gave him to be like, yeah, go take care of our problem. Yeah. Uses that as far as like we found evidence that the bomber is planning another attack. Here's said evidence. Can you tell me what your investigations brought up? Like what Caitlyn and this prisoner have found? Yeah. Yeah, let me know. Like, let me in on this action because he just wants to go kill Vi.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, but because of the evidence of the bomber, Jace is like, no, it's time for martial law. We go ahead and lock down the city. No one crosses that bridge.
His 5th day?
Yeah,
like martial law on your 5th day. Man. And on the 5th day, he said,
make Piltover great again.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, like, one, this is just already a bunch of moves for Jace, but this, like, Marcus is, like, playing his cards well because for him, it's a win-win. Yeah. If it's martial law and lockdown, I either catch your bomber, that's a promotion for me. Yeah. Or I catch Caitlyn and Vi coming across, I can kill Vi.
So I'm happy you mentioned cards because we did have a moment during the mobster scene where Silco made his comment. And as he made his comment, he threw a card at the house he built with the little girl, and the house of cards came tumbling down. And this theme is throughout everything. Everything, like all the planning, the Marcus stuff, the political stuff has gone too far for everyone to handle, and now it's getting out of hand. And obviously, we're in the middle of this arc, right? We're getting to Act 3 next week, so it's only natural that you have this turn, right? And things start to go into chaos. So there's a lot of symbolism throughout this one.
A lot.
All the way through, which is really well done.
Yeah, so now Jace's martial law cannot take effect until all of the council's on board. And this is a very cool political turn. Yeah. As far as just like the politics in it. Yeah. I will say Riot has done a great job of doing a lot of political intrigue in a short amount of time.
Yes. Yes.
If you are not into political intrigue, it's not interesting. But with this, like Jace is
trade agreement.
Yeah, Jace comes to the council, says it's time for us to go on full lockdown to protect this. Heimerdinger is like, no, I don't think that's best because it's going to bring tension between the two cities. And I also think you're doing this for personal reasons because of the hex, because of your hex core discovery. And Jace is like, nope, this is what's needed. And if you're not for it, I think it's time for us to retire our most senior member of the council.
How many times we got to teach you this lesson, old man?
He's a founder of Piltover.
By like 100 years.
He was there before Piltover was built. The city that stood before it, he watched get destroyed, rebuilt it as Piltover, and now some chump comes in and goes, don't you want a break?
Some young hothead.
It's always a young hothead.
It's always a young hothead.
Cool your heads.
And it's there's a quick shot here, a couple frames of when he makes that comment. Everyone is shocked, obviously, because he's the newest council member who's been very active lately. This is not who he was before. We're seeing a huge personality shift. And also, we know he has relations with Mel. And this is the first time we see Mel make a decision, but also being uncertain about it. Because the whole time she's fidgeting with her, remember, the fidget toy she gave to the older guy, right? But she's fidgeting with like a pencil as she finally decides to put her hand up and be the first one to trigger this vote outside of Jace.
I mean, this is the first time Mel's not in the driver's seat.
Oh, dude, there's a lot of this is probably the most subtle episode. I mean, obviously the chaos around happening, but it's subtle. It's not just in your face explosions or whatever.
Like if you're paying attention to how subtle it is, you can feel just how quickly it's accelerating.
Yes.
I think if you're not paying attention to that, it's a lot of boring crap until we get to the shooting.
Smooth as fast.
But they do a great job here. Ultimately, Heimerdinger gets ousted, which is like, well, crap, that's like George Washington getting thrown out of a cabinet.
Yeah.
There's no way that's going to come to bite anyone in the butt.
No. But it's shoot time.
It's shoot time.
So Silco finds Vi. We go back to the city, or not, well, I guess, we go back to the outskirts of the city in Zon. And Caitlyn has given Vi a little bit of potions, given her the kick she needs. 5-hour energy from the gas station will do that. And as they kind of get back up to speed, they step outside, and guess who's waiting for them with his gang of junkies?
Man, the note I put here was all hail the meth lord, because it is them getting cornered by Silco, and you get the feeling of like this faded reunion because Silco's like, Vi, I've been waiting for this.
Can't go any deeper.
And Vi is like, yeah, I've been waiting for this too. Like, they both want to kill each other. But the whole time that Silco's like, I've been waiting for this, he's just handing out Shimmer to all these junkies. And all these junkies are like, hell yeah, I'll do anything for a hit.
just one bump, man. And so it's like the scene is very unsettling from the beginning, and it just continues down that path. They end up finding a way to escape. Caitlyn kind of notices like a shaky beam of sorts, right? And as his goons begin to attack after they consume some Shimmer, we get this tumbling of, what is that? It's like it's almost like I would consider it like a billboard, maybe.
Yeah, it looks like an old billboard or just an old neon sign. Yeah. This scene to me was hella cartoony because it ended up just being like the old Western jokes of like the front of a building falling and you're standing where the window is, so you're good. And so spoilers, it falls, it kills every junkie and it kills all the goons, and Silco's the only one alive.
And he throws a tantrum.
He finally throws a tantrum, kicking a corpse like more dead. I don't know. He's just kicking a corpse. Vi and Caitlyn running for their lives. And then we get this cool shot of, while they're running for their lives, Jinx gets to the highest point of Zon and lights the flare that she was given in Act 1 when Vi went on the mission to save Vander. And it's like, if you light this and wherever you are, I will find you.
Yep.
And so this whole chase scene and Silco freak out ends with Vi seeing the flare.
Yep.
And Vi's like, hey, I know where to go now.
And then there's this weird cut. I mean, it sort of fits where she sees the flare and then it cuts back to a Victor flashback of him finding out what Singe was doing to that salamander. Because remember, Victor said, how can I help as a kid, and was bringing him the flowers. And he saw what it was doing to the salamander. And it shows his disgust then, but then cuts to him older, going back to find Singe, who hasn't aged a day, by the way. Yeah. Great skin.
No, he's aged because his skin has been burned. Because remember, he is caught in the explosion at the end of episode 3.
Oh, because his face was covered. So I was like, oh, he kind of looks the same.
So he's got like, it's all covered up. So everything that's uncovered looks the same.
Oh.
But he's covered because he was caught in that explosion in episode 3. But yeah, so Victor comes there and I understand now. And this is just more into that thing of like, oh no, like I think it's more now that like Victor, instead of like preserving his life, I must preserve the transmutation.
Yep.
The mutation must survive for the glorious evolution. So now we got Victor and Singed, I guess, going to be working together. We don't know. It kind of ends with just this revelation of Victor understanding the quick
and still no name for Singe.
Still no name for Singe. You have to watch with subtitles to know I'm right.
It's going to be like the end of a post credit is going to be like, oh, by the way, Singed. And then it's just going to end.
Voice actor for Singed.
Voice actor for Singed. But we get that realization from Victor that Singed in his mind was correct. And then we cut to Jinx, who's having a different realization that the flare's almost out. Vi's nowhere to be seen. And she's starting to give up, and she turns around, and guess who's there? Dramatic music swells.
Just on time.
It's my sister.
Oh, you came back.
Yeah, Vi says, I came. I'm here, and it's not an illusion. Then we get some Terry moments, and then we get some Sakuga. And this is some good. So this is a scene I want to go back and watch again. So as they're, getting close and she's convincing Jinx that it's not an illusion, it's not your mind, I'm back. Chempunks show up. The Firelights are back finally, and they're back in force.
I mean, before we even see the Firelights, like it's because this happens really, really fast.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because we get the like Jinx and Vi reunion. Jinx says we're finally back together again.
Yeah.
And then opens her eyes, and coming up the stairs behind where Vi had come up is Caitlin.
It's like, whoops.
It's like, oh, you're with the cops.
Yeah.
Jinx pulls the gun on Vi. Vi is like, you can shoot if you want, but I'm still your sister and I'm here for you.
Yeah.
And in this tense moment of Powder versus Jinx in her own mind, while that's happening, Firelights show up, and then it's full on shootout.
Oh, dude, it moves fast, and this is definitely seen. Just go watch it. I'm probably gonna watch it again because there's a lot of cool cuts in there. It's very fluid too. It's well animated in that moment. You could tell there was it looked like there was a dramatic budget increase in that. Yeah, space.
When we get to the end of this whole series, I will get to spell out my beef that I have as far as with the animation in this show. This fight scene is probably the top moment for me so far. It is done so well. It feels so fluid. There are times in it that I could imagine this being a live action almost. Like, it's incredible. They do such a good job with this, and it's entertaining to watch, and me trying to describe it would do it injustice. Yeah.
And what this all ends up resulting in, coming to the end of the episode here, is that it goes bad. The Hex Gem that Jinx had on her gets taken by the Chempunks, and then also gets taken Vi. And then we get some smoke grenades, which I don't think we've seen smoke grenades up to this point.
Not yet, no.
We get a couple of them, and they disappear, leaving Jinx alone again. And when she's alone, she's in her own mind, and it already starts to go bad. And then we get a cut, and then credits. Yeah. So this leaves us at an interesting spot for where things are going to pick up. Because like we said, the theme of this is, hey, we're in the middle of the arc. We're going towards the end in the next act. Obviously, this is chaos raining down. And how is everyone going to respond respectively?
Yeah.
And we know.
Yeah, the only things as far as in this fight scene that I will bring up is going to be that there are moments where Vi is watching Jinx fight.
Yeah.
And you can see on her face that she's realizing you're not the Powder I knew.
Yeah.
Which I think that's going to be important as far as like whatever kind of clash we end up ending on in the third act.
Yep. And that third act will be soon. One more gauntlet. We got one more gauntlet of this, and this has been fun so far. But for this episode, thanks for listening. We'll be back soon with the next Arcane episode.
Take care, everybody.